This is Abe Friedtanzer from Awards Buzz, and I'm very excited to be speaking with Erica Tremblay about Fancy Dance. How are you, Erica?
Good. How are you?
Good. I'm happy to be talking about this film. I saw it at Sundance back in 2023, now almost 2 years ago, which is pretty crazy because I feel like there's just so much time that has passed, especially for your star Lily Gladstone and just, her profile then and profile now. But I'm excited that this film is still in the conversation, and just very happy to be able to revisit it.
Yeah, me too. It's been a wild year.
So this obviously started a while ago, this film. What was the first sort of burst of inspiration for you?
Well, I'm from the Seneca Cayuga Nation in Oklahoma. I grew up in my community, and I guess I've just always wanted to work on stories based in around Indigenous people's lives, and I had always dreamt of being a filmmaker and had done a whole other career and then remembered this dream that I'd had. And I was studying, I kind of quit my day job and moved to a small reservation and was studying Cayuga, my indigenous language, full time. So I did a 3-year long language immersion program where I was studying Cayuga 8 hours a day and then writing at night. And while I was studying the language, we learned familial words. And I learned that the word for mother is Kanoha and that the word for auntie is Kanoha'a, which means little mother. And that kind of just like broke open this idea in my head of making this auntie niece story and kind of grounding it in language. There are less than 20 fluent Cayuga speakers left, so the language is considered extinct. Where I grew up in my community in Oklahoma, we didn't have any speakers. Our last speaker died in 1989. And so I was kind of just inspired to tell this modern story about young Native people who speak their language fluently and are also using their community and culture to kind of stay afloat in this kind of ever pressing, these oppressive systems that are pushing down on top of them. They have each other to get through it all.
I remember finding the film very entertaining at times, which sort of feels a little bit strange given the backdrop of its story. But the scene that always sticks with me is when they switch the gas pumps so that the guy comes and just started because they're just like so smooth about it. And so there's so much in that moment that you realize that they know how to do these things together. They know how, especially with the opening scene. And it's just so there's something really fun about the story.
Yeah, I think when you look at folks that are in communities where you kind of have to do what you need to do to get by, I think Jax has this like interesting like moral gauge in terms of like not feeling super bothered by grifting off of the non-native people who are encroaching on her reservation. But of course, she would never steal gas from an elder, let's say that lived up the block. And so, Michiana, Elise, my co-writer, and I one day sat down and just like wrote a big, huge list of grifts out and like all the different ways that we could have them kind of surviving in this world. And that was one of them that we kind of just came up with. But then like several weeks, I guess it was months later after we'd filmed the film, we found like a local article that was like, watch out for this like gas. So I guess people actually really do that. We thought we made it up.
Well, there's on a more serious note, there is also Shea Wiggum's character. I found very interesting just because he is not part of this world, but he understands that because of his connections, he understands his power as a white man to be able to call the police and have them listen to him right away. But he also says, I can't, it's not my fault that I'm white. And that's a really interesting, I'd like to hear more about just the incorporation of that character into the story.
Yeah, I think, Michiana and I, both of our dads are non-native, and I think like we were working through like our own daddy issues, I guess, as we were making this film. But we didn't want to just have like this like antagonistic, like bad white man character because like that's not really, I mean, while it might be believable, I guess it's not like interesting dramatically. And we really wanted this character, Shea Wiggum's character, to be trying. And like even though he is fumbling around and doesn't really know how to like hit the mark, he does love his kids. And Lily wants, Jack's Lily's character wants nothing more than to have a family and to be grounded in that, but also like keenly recognizes the ways in which her dad is failing the family. And even his new white wife, right? Like the new grandmother, she, while I don't agree with the way she views the world, and I don't agree with, like, how she interacts with Roki and with Jax. You understand where she's coming from and, like, that her belief systems and her world system is what's guiding her through this, and that deep down inside, for all of these kind of corrupt reasons, she really truly believes that she's the right home for this young child. And so it was important for us, I think, to give humanity to everyone in the story, and that included these, like, white characters that were kind of meant to come in and make things harder for the protagonists. And so yeah, I think, I grew up having non-native family, and a lot of the inspiration for this story or for those characters were pulled from interactions that I had with my own, white family.
That's really interesting. I appreciate the complexity because I think that it's something that's hard to convey, but I think this film does a great job of just beginning to get into how that can be complicated and not necessarily, for lack of a better term, black and white. So, well, I also know, as I mentioned before, Lily, this has been quite a journey for her the past couple of years. I had seen The Unknown Country, I think at South by Southwest, either a year or a year and a half before that. And then Killers of the Flower Moon was still this unknown thing that wasn't out yet, but then that came out first, and then this afterwards. Can you just talk about having Lily involved and how, again, hopefully this film, her presence helps to really boost the profile of this film?
Sure. I mean, Lily is incredible. Lily and I made a short film together called Little Chief in, I think, 2018 or 19. I was thinking 2018. And I just, I think ever since I saw Lily's face in Kelly Reichardt's Certain Women, I was like, whoa, is that a native person that I'm seeing just on the screen without any explanation? And I immediately was like Googling who is Lily Gladstone. And when Lily did the short film, when we did the short film together, we were like, well, what are we gonna do next? Like, do we do something larger in this same world? And Lily got cast and shot Killers before Fancy Dance, but then Killers came out before Fancy Dance. And so she had just come off, I think it was just like several weeks after some reshoots. So really it was like right on the tail end of the, lengthy production process for that film. And then we premiered at Sundance, but then Killers premiered at Cannes like later in that same year. And so of course everyone kind of threw a huge blockbuster film like that is able to kind of like be introduced to Lily on this like really, really, really massive scale. And so of course, like, her, Golden Globe win and like the all of the Oscar nomination, all of that stuff, of course, like raised the profile of this film. And I think that people want to see Lily on screen. Like it's like who doesn't want to see an incredible performer like do their job at like the highest level. And I think what's really great about this film, kind of in conversation with that other work, is we're back in Oklahoma 100 years later talking about the same topics. And of course, while we are like made a film at the fraction of the budget, and it's not like I'm never gonna like win any comparisons in that battle. But I think that it's a really great companion piece for the work that Lily did in that film, in the sense that we can see that that modern Native folks are still very much feeling the reverberation of all of the violence that was kind of so shocking, and maybe audiences were learning about that for the first time through Martin Scorsese's film. I think that this is a way to kind of like go a little deeper in how that era it just extends, right? And that since contact, this sort of violence has been impacting Indigenous peoples and continues to do so.
Well, Lily is certainly terrific, but so is Isabella Joy Olsen, and obviously does, have the same filmography. Where did you find her?
Oh, I got, just so lucky to find Isabel. In fact, when we first got some grant monies, very before we even really had a final draft of the script that we were all like happy about, we brought on Mid Thunder Casting and Stacey Rice, this great casting um, director, and I'd worked with Mid Thunder before on Reservation Dogs, which is a show that I also wrote directed on. Um, we started the search very soon before we had financiers, before we knew that this movie was even going to be a movie. And it really was based off of knowing what Sean Baker went through for Florida Project to find his young star. I remember hearing on a podcast him talking about the search for that young actress. And so I was like, we got to start now if we're going to make this film. And so it was really almost a 2-year long search. And we had looked at so many wonderfully talented and young Indigenous women for the role. And then I was happened to be casting an episode of Dark Winds on AMC, and Isabel had auditioned for like a pregnant teenager, and just a really wonderful audition, but looked way too young to like play the role of this pregnant teenager on the show. But I immediately like messaged Stacy and I was like, I think I found her. And we had her read. And as soon as I saw her audition and met with her, knew that she was our Roki. And I think, Lily's star power is so large on the screen, and her face, like I call it the moon. It just takes up the whole sky. And I needed, you know, I needed that actor that was gonna be able to come in and not dim and not like kind of like be overtaken by that shine. And I just knew in my heart that the two of them would bounce off of each other and be able to like, throw that shine back and forth to each other. And as a director, how lucky are you to get to work with such incredible talent? And this was Isabel's first feature. She'd, I think, done like one role prior to this. So it was also really great to get to see Lily and Isabel work with each other in terms of like Lily, bringing her onto the set and showing her the ropes, and then so it was they're really really wonderful. And um you know I think Isabel played young Lily in Under the Bridge on Hulu. So that was also a really great thing, like, oh, no audition. She's just gonna play. So they've continued to work with each other after.
Great. Do you know what's next for you?
Well, I am just doing a lot, I guess. There's so much that I'm working on right now. I've got a horror film that I'm adapting, a horror novel right now. I've got a thriller that I'm writing with Michiana, my co-writer for this, and I'm really excited to kind of take the character work that was done in fancy dance and apply it in genre. Like I'm excited to, like what's my Indigenous take on horror and thriller, and so that's great. And I'm in a writer's room right now for a show that is don't think is announced yet, so I can't say. But yeah, I've been very busy, and this film has been such a blessing, and so grateful that this will always be my first.
Well, since this is awards buzz, I'm always curious people I'm talking to. What have you seen recently? A film, a show, a performance that's really sticking with you as one of your favorites?
Oh, well, I thought Honora was so great. I also went and saw Wicked with my nieces this past weekend. I feel like that there's so much out there. I'm really rooting for Sugarcane, a documentary that's like getting lots of award buzz right now. There's a lot of stuff out there, and I'm grateful to be an audience member this year. I think there's a lot of gems, and I've gotten a lot of like FYC, like screeners that are like piling up in my email that I'm excited to watch as well. But I think it's been a fun year. It felt like maybe it was going to be slow, and then all of a sudden there was like a lot going on. So I'm hopeful that people are going back to the movies again too. So
How do you feel that the industry is doing generally in terms of native representation?
you know, this question's always an interesting one because native representation in storytelling only feels like it's lacking if you're like outside of native spaces. Like native people have been telling stories as a way of life for million, not millions of years, for a millennia, for thousands of years. And so I think like there's just has been a lack of access for that storytelling to connect with cinema and to connect with this industry. And I'm really grateful to in fact, I just saw a list for like Indigenous or Native American Heritage Month of like things, and it was like Dark Winds, oh, I work on that show. And it was like Reservation Dogs, oh, I work on that show. And it was like Fancy Dance, oh, I made that movie. And I was like, it's great because I really feel like I'm inside of whatever this momentum is. And I'm just so grateful to, my mentors like Sydney Freeland and Sterling Harjo, who have been out here grinding for decades, like making stuff on the lowest budgets, and like to see all of their hard work pay off, not only for their own careers, but then for them to kind of like lift hands for us to like come with them, and like them being so supportive. I think like right now it's so wonderful to see so many like peers and mentors, and also the folks coming up to that are making things, and like there's an excitement around it. And I'm I always quote Sterling that like we're not going back to the way that it was. So like it's weird because like there was the strike and there was all these things, but then like our careers have never been better, and like this time where everyone else is feeling this like whatever. I'm like, you mean I'm getting paid at all to be a writer and a director? This is like the dream come true. So I think like I, I'm I'm hopeful that with the successes of these shows and films, that execs in the industry will see that there's a lot of talent both in front of and behind the camera when it comes to Indigenous representation, and that they'll keep calling on us to make these stories. And I also think we see that the appetite from the audience is very much there to learn about like communities and cultures that are next door to them that they may not have known much about, and that when those stories are told in an authentic way, like with humanity, the result is going to be something that's truthful. And I think that at the end of the day, all audiences really want is something that's honest. And so, yeah, I have a lot of hope that we'll see this momentum continue to swing, and that we'll hear from more and more voices. I mean, I want to go to all of them. I want to. I'm a fan here for all of the stories that are yet to be told. That's for sure.
That's a great attitude, and I look forward to seeing what you do with all of your genre work that's coming up.
Me too.
Thank you so much, Erica. So nice to meet you.
Thanks, Abe.